Hey everybody, hope you're having the best day of your life. And if you woke up in America this morning, congratulations, you're the 1% of all time. I mean, think about it, people. Millions of people want to be where you are this morning, and they're not, and you are. So that makes you blessed, right? Be thankful for that. Don't forget to thank God for that, because it's a great thing. So you know what? You got liberty, freedom, and opportunity in front of you. So get up, get after it, and live that American dream. All right, President Trump, of all people, again shocks the world, okay? Last month, it was the United Arab Emirates, and they agreed to acknowledge Israel's right to exist. They signed a peace agreement with Israel, and now they're going to have economic trade and so forth and so on. So this is only the third Arab nation to ever acknowledge Israel's right to exist, and the first of the Gulf Arab nations to do so. Guess what? Bahrain has just followed suit. Now we have another Arab nation, Gulf Arab nation state, acknowledging Israel's right to exist. This is huge, people. This is gigantic. Bahrain has signed a peace agreement with Israel, and now they will have economic ties, military alliances, possibly, so forth and so on. The other interesting thing about this is that to fly over, they were allowed to fly over Saudi Arabian territory for the very first time from Israel. All right, I can't remember if it was to Bahrain or if it was to United Arab Emirates. I think it was to Bahrain, and they were allowed to fly over Saudi Arabian space for the very first time in history. I think personally that there's a good chance that Saudi Arabia is going to be following suit soon, and that would be earthquake. The press will not be able to ignore that. They should not be able to ignore the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain. These are huge, huge things that just happened. But of course they will, because Orange Man is always bad, right? But Orange Man is not bad. Orange Man is good. And let me tell you another one that they actually ignored. Serbia and Kosovo. The Trump administration also negotiated a peace agreement between Serbia and Kosovo. Serbia, predominantly Eastern Orthodox country, and Kosovo, predominantly Muslim country, all right? The Trump administration negotiated a peace agreement between these two, and now they've agreed to have peace and economic alliances and so forth and so on. And here's the other thing about that. Serbia, predominantly Eastern Orthodox country, has now agreed to move its embassy to Jerusalem. Beautiful. And Kosovo, a predominantly Muslim country, which has never acknowledged Israel's right to exist, now acknowledges Israel's right to exist. So this is amazing stuff, amazing things happening in the Middle East, and the Trump administration is doing it all. You know, I got to tell you guys, this is huge for me. The Middle East is gigantic. I'm not going to be shocked at all if Saudi Arabia doesn't follow suit. But let me tell you how, up until now, the paradigm in the Middle East has always been the Arab nations saying that they would not acknowledge Israel's right to exist until the Palestinian issue was resolved. And the Trump administration flipped all that on its head. And, you know, in '79, Jimmy Carter was able to get the Egyptians to go along with a peace agreement with Israel, basically using the carrot and the stick approach. Sadat, the Egyptian prime minister who actually signed that peace agreement, was actually murdered, if I'm not mistaken, by the Muslim Brotherhood, actually. And then in 94, I think it was 94, Jordan, actually, the Clinton administration was able to get Jordan to acknowledge Israel's right to exist and sign a peace agreement with them. But in both cases, we use the carrot and the stick approach. We basically, these are relatively poor countries, and so we were able to use economic leverage to get them to acknowledge Israel's right to exist. In the case of United Arab Emirates, they're a rich country. They didn't need to do that. They just did it, all right, because the Trump administration showed them how valuable this was to do and how important it was to do. The same thing here with the Kingdom of Bahrain. Bahrain has just agreed to a peace agreement with Israel. It's only the third and fourth. United Arab Emirates, the third Arab nation to acknowledge Israel's right to exist. Bahrain, the fourth Arab country to acknowledge Israel's right to exist. And then, of course, Kosovo, being a Muslim country acknowledging Israel's right to exist. These are huge, huge things that are going down in the Middle East, and the Trump administration is working hard. They're the ones that are responsible for this. Let me tell you how personal this is for me. The Palestinian issue. So when I think of the Olympics, my first memories of the Olympics are not athletes. My first memory of the Olympics is the 1972 Munich Olympics, where Palestinian Liberation Organization, PLO people, actually kidnapped the Israeli athletes and murdered some of them. And it was horrible. So my very first memory of the Olympics is seeing a masked PLO terrorist actually looking out a window. And that's my very first memory as a little child, 1972. So this is gigantic. It's beautiful to see peace breaking out in the Middle East. And you know what? Because Saudi Arabia allowed flights from Israel to fly over their airspace, that was sending a signal. I really truthfully believe Saudi Arabia is going to be next, and that will be a complete earthquake. I do not see how the mainstream media can continue to ignore the peacemaker, President Trump. So along those lines, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall inherit the kingdom of earth. I'm sorry, they shall inherit the kingdom of heaven. Anyway, President Trump, the peacemaker, baby. Trump 2020. Oh, and if you like what you hear, please like, subscribe, comment, and share my videos all over the place. And you know what? If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. And please put the bell there so when I put out a video, you can see it. And it'll just make my life simpler. Because the more subscriptions I get and the more people who know my content is out there, the more videos I'm going to be putting out. I could have put out 3 videos yesterday alone. But anyway, God is good. President Trump 2020, the peacemaker, baby.